Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Gen Z Hoops podcast. Today I'm joined by an assistant coach of the Portland Trailblazers, Coach Chris Fleming. Coach Fleming, how you doing today, sir?
Pretty good, Ashton. How are you?
I'm doing great. Finished up early morning pickup and had an early morning lift over here. Just thank you for giving me this opportunity, though.
I appreciate you having me on.
So let's jump right into the conversation. Why don't we? So you grew up in Forked River, New Jersey. So take me through it. Where did your passion for the game of basketball first begin?
Well, actually, I spent the first 10 years of my life, I lived on a barrier island in the Jersey Shore called Long Beach Island. People in that area probably know it. And as a kid, like the 3 summer months are phenomenal because it's packed, but everybody goes home for the other 9 months of the year, and then all you have is your basket out front. So I played a lot of basketball by myself as a young kid, and my father had played himself, so obviously he influenced me quite a bit with that.
Were you a New Jersey Nets fan growing up?
I was not. I was a Sixers fan. So we lived about an hour and a half outside of Philly, and that was Dr. J and Mo Cheeks and Moses Malone and all those guys. So that was my team.
You got to witness that special championship when they got revenge on the Lakers. What was that, like 80? What was that, 80?
81.
81, yes. Okay.
Yes. Yep. That was phenomenal.
So you scored over 2,200 points at Lacey Township High School. So that was a pretty prolific high school career, I would say so myself. How did it basically put you on the right trajectory to playing college basketball?
Yeah, I think what helped me was that the high school was pretty small and it was a basketball school. So I started as a freshman. I was able, because they didn't have, a ton of talent, a ton of depth there. I think just helped my confidence as a young player, just to be able to play a lot early in my career. I think that was to me, that's the biggest thing. As a young player, you got to play, and I really got that opportunity there.
What was did you ever go through freshman year lulls as a freshman, kind of like a lot of have any down moments of that sort?
When I was in high school, yeah, I'm sure I did. We had really good upperclassmen, and I'm sure I got whooped up on quite a bit, but they took good care of me.
What was the recruiting process like for you? What were your top schools looking like, and did you actually go on any visits?
Yeah, I did. I did go. I did go on a few visits. Basically, boiled down, I wanted to go to Villanova. That was a school I wanted to go to, and they they wanted to redshirt me. I was a little bit over 160 pounds, 6'5". So the Big East at that time was really, really physical, um, and I didn't want a red shirt. I thought I could play right away, and I ended up going to UConn to prove them wrong. And as it turned out, I did need a year, so I transferred and worked on my body for a year. But the recruiting process was probably pretty immature. Just wanting to play in the Big East and not realizing where I was at the time.
What was your freshman year like in college? Can you take me through what that transition was like? Because the levels are really different. Like the speed of the game, the physicality is all very different.
Yeah, I mean I think the physicality and then the closeout speed, the time you have to make your decisions. I think every time, regardless of which level you move to, every time you move up a level, that closeout speed to me is the biggest change. And I think that was what stood out. I was a pretty skinny kid, and playing against physical, they felt like men to me. I think just adjusting to that was big.
I can agree with you on that note. Like now I'm in like my sophomore year. I try and drink like 2 protein shakes a day and like try and pack on the creatine so I can like bang with the guys down low. One struggle that I actually like had my freshman year last year was that like how set orientated it is, like how slower paced the game is. Cause like high school, like I played in like the NEPSAC, which is like those New England prep schools. So we're like getting
Sure,
down, like we're getting up and down a lot. And then like, yeah, you have like your simple actions, you know what I mean? Just to get you something like a horn set or something like that where you can like pop out for a three, where it's like a screen the screener action when the what do you call it? The ball handler goes off one side and then the guys
sure,
the other, yeah, like stuff like that we would run. But now it's like so many interchanging parts, and then especially when you play like I'm like a wing, so you have to figure out like the three and the four now, kind of like play in and
sure.
out. Yeah, that was like my biggest struggle though. But I can agree with you on that note. Like the physicality is definitely a big.
Well,
It's
well, we had a 45-second shot clock back then, so
really
if you think it's set oriented now, just imagine what it was with a 45-second clock.
how slow was the game like
The
slower
game
because
was slower, yeah,
uh,
considerably slower. Especially when I went to Richmond, we beat a lot of the big teams, but we beat them with discipline and just wear out that shot clock and keep moving. So um,
why do you think?
it was,
I'm sorry, what were you saying? Sorry.
no, I think it just changed the game enormously as they reduced the shot clock.
Why do you think they reduced the shot clock? That's like that was what I was gonna ask just now.
I don't have any game film of that time, but I'm sure nobody wanted to watch it. It's just as the players got bigger and faster and better and more skilled, that it makes sense to reduce the shot clock. It's just better for the game, and it's better to watch.
I'm sure you guys played much more defense back then, though. Especially it wasn't that many like you weren't running like a fast break. A lot of like college teams, like I see nowadays they try and play fast, like they kind of like eliminate that like mid-range shots, more like layups and threes, getting up and down now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen. I mean, the math doesn't lie on that, right? The value of the shot early in the shot clock is typically a lot higher, and obviously uh, the mid range shots are there's just better alternatives for most players. I mean, obviously there's some great ones that can make those shots, but efficiently. But it's the the rim and the three and the free throw line are just a ton more efficient shots. So it makes a lot of sense at every level to me.
So I know that we're getting a little off topic here, but like this just like sparked my curiosity right here. Since you coach in the NBA, are there like certain statistics that you guys look at where it's like you tell players like you can only shoot this amount of like mid-range shots. We want you to shoot like X amount of threes.
I don't think players, and I didn't do well as a player if you said it's all this and not this. And I mean, you want to give them freedom to play basketball too, because there's times in the shot clock where you have to, as it gets late in the shot clock, you have to go get a shot, right? That's how it is. I think if you're doing your job as a coach, you're probably convincing them that it's um, that these are just better shots for your team, and uh, I think the statistics help bear that out. But I always think, I tell the guys like most of those mid range shots are contested, right? You shoot the mid range shot because the defense doesn't let you shoot the layup. And I think if you'd like take the analytics out of it and just take all the lines off the court, take the restricted area out, take the 3-point line out, and now imagine you're playing at the Y
Mhm.
in if the middle's clogged and you're shooting that mid-range shot, it's probably because there's probably another guy open. So let's just look at the fact that contested shots are logically worse than uncontested shots. So let's just try to get uncontested shots. And I think some guys that'll make sense. That'll resonate with a lot of guys. that way, where you're not really talking about the analytics, you're just talking about the contestedness of the particular shot.
Yeah, that makes sense actually. That does actually make a lot of sense. I feel like a lot of people like overcomplicate it nowadays where it's like we want like this particular shot out of like a certain action instead of just like playing the game. It kind of like I feel like sometimes like coaches make it like a little robotic and like from
I
like
think it's become difficult. I agree with you. We'll do that sometimes, Ash, and I think that's probably something we've all done in our coaching careers. But I think um, the way that the defenses change
yeah,
now from switching to blitzing to hedging and drop and all the variations, the players have to be empowered to make decisions and see, make plays based on what they see in front of them. And I think for us as coaches, our job is to help them um, see the best for our group.
of course. So going back to your college career actually, how did your playing time at the University of Richmond, how did that experience basically prepare you to pursue like a professional career overseas?
I thought obviously it was pretty competitive at the time. Um, and I think that the competition is the biggest thing that prepares you. You have to overcome something and maybe raise your game another level. Um, Richmond's where I really learned to play basketball, where they taught us how to play and it had pretty big influence on how I played and ultimately at the end how I coached.
Was there ever like a particular moment where you thought to yourself like, okay, yeah, I can play pro?
Um, I think I always, somehow had the dream of doing that, and it was clear I wasn't going to be an NBA player. Um, so I thought I was good enough to try it,
Mhm.
but without actually knowing what it was. Knowing it wasn't going to be here in the States, it was probably going to be somewhere abroad, and I'd never been abroad at that time. So I don't think I really knew, but I knew I was curious and wanted to give it a try.
So moving forward to your professional career overseas, you actually played professionally in Germany. What other before making the decision to go to Germany, what other countries were you looking at?
Yeah, I think we should tell the story the right way.
Okay.
I I got out of when I got out of college, I wanted to play professionally, and at a certain point, I couldn't find a team that thought I was as good as I thought I was. So I ended up going to grad school and taking a job, and I had a college roommate who was playing in Germany. So how it turned out is his girlfriend thought he was lonely and probably needed a companion there, and she started calling local teams for me. I didn't play at a really high level, but I basically got into playing in Europe because my college roommate was lonely. So um, I didn't have a ton of choices out there, and I was very fortunate to land in a great spot and to play for 6 years and meet some great people. But I don't think I was really highly sought after at that point.
You mentioned like not being abroad like prior to that experience. What was it like first experiencing like European basketball and comparing it to like United States American basketball?
Um, well, again, I didn't play at a really high level, so my team drank a lot more beer than I was used to drinking in American basketball. There was some rule differences. They called the traveling different. There was the physicality in the painted area was officiated differently. In Europe, they let you use your hands a lot more. You can move from A to B a little bit more. They let more go. So I think just getting used to that, were probably the biggest differences.
One funny story that you bring up like physicality. When I prior to starting like the interview, I was telling you how like another Blazers assistant coach, Coach Jonah, he like coached me when I played in Greece and over in Greece. I remember our first game. I'll never forget this. This one, I was guarding like this team, the other team's like best player, and then he was like shoving me. So like you know me, I'm not gonna like take that crap. Me and this kid are like elbowing each other like in the corner, just like going like this,
Sure.
going over and over again. It got so bad to the point where we were just like we were literally like punching each other, like coming up the court, like you know, like short like jabs like that.
Yeah.
And it continued like the whole game. And then it got to the point where like the guy just like clotheslined me at the end of the game when I was like going to the rim. I was like seeing stars at the free throw. I was like trying to figure out how to make the free throw. Yeah, I'll never forget that though. He was like coming off
Yeah.
the screen, I would like pull his arm back, stuff like that. Like do it, and they wouldn't call it.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a little bit more gamesmanship with the with the physical contact there for sure.
He was
And
just sitting back saying like, "Go, go, man, go play, man." He loved it. It was hilarious though. I can't even say that. Another thing that's officiated differently, other than like they play very fundamentally over there, I can say for a fact, like they're way more disciplined than like American basketball players. They don't do any like much of that like flashy stuff. Except you have like outliers like Luka, Jokic, like guys like that. But the one thing like you can like walk in like while a guy is shooting a free throw, you can just like walk in instead of it being like a lane violation or something like that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's a looser interpretation of certain rules and probably a tighter interpretation, some others that you get used to after a while.
So when did you first want to pursue a career in coaching?
Uh, I'd always known I probably would try it at one point. Um, Basically, my playing career ended with the owner of the club that I was at for 6 years. Just in our postseason meeting, he just asked me what I wanted to do next season, and I said we were in the second division, we're knocking on the door to get to the first division, and I told him I wanted to, come back and help us get into the first division. And he asked me if I would ever be interested in coaching, and I said no. Yeah, I'd be interested, you know, after my career is over. And I didn't know at the moment we were talking, my career was already over. So he basically said, listen, I'm going to offer you the job to coach the team. I was 30 at the time. I'd torn my ACL. I had some stuff. It probably was a good time to stop anyway. Um, and so I wasn't necessarily anticipating so early, but got a really good opportunity at a young age to learn to figure things out as a coach.
So you actually led the Artland Dragons to a German Cup championship in 2008. How did that like early like a big achievement early on in your coaching career? Like what did it mean to you?
Well, it was really important in that town. So that was I had been in that town at that point for 14 years, six as a player, and that was my eighth year coaching there. So I coached for 3 years in the second league, and then we won the second league and moved to the first league in 2003, I think. And had had built something pretty special there. It was a great town to be a part of. They love basketball. It really supported the team. We have really good situation to work in. And the year before, we had actually made the finals and had lost in the finals. So coming back and then winning the cup the next year just felt like you know kind of the icing on the cake for that town. It really meant a lot to the people, and it was special to be a part of.
So moving forward, at I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly. I'm going to try my best. At Brose Bamberg,
Broza, yeah, Broza, yep.
Brose Bamberg, you actually won four consecutive. I can't pronounce that. But
League championships,
yeah,
yeah.
league championships. Let's say league.
Bundesliga, yeah.
Yeah, let's say league championships and actually earned the coach of the year in 2011. So can you take me through that run a little bit and like how did you build such a dominant program in that league?
Yeah. So Bamberg was a big job. They had played EuroLeague a couple times. And when I got the job, they were on a little bit of a downturn. Our first season was pretty rocky. Um, they were going through some financial things. We probably didn't have the right players for how we wanted to play. And I think after that first season, we all sat together. The GM, Wolfgang Heider, and myself, and we hired a scouting director named Brendan Rooney. He works now for Oklahoma City internationally. Really helped us bring in the right players, but we looked to get younger guys. We knew if we wanted to be a EuroLeague team, we weren't going to be able to pay at the level that the Moscows and the Madrids and those teams were paying. So we tried to get guys that were just coming out of college or young German guys and kind of build through that. I think that concept helped us through those years. We added some veteran players, but I think that conceptually that's what became our identity for that run and what made us pretty good.
So as a coach, like as a coach, I hear my coach here at college like talk a little bit about culture being like a big piece of like a team's identity. Like what is your take on that? Like how important do you think is having a standard culture in a program?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty much everything, and basically it's your culture is a sum of your interactions with each other, right? Like how you treat people, and obviously as a leader there, you're the head coach, and you have some sort of GM type responsibilities as well. Um, you do a lot to set the culture and how you go about treating people and how you go about organizing your day sets the tone for the rest of the organization. And so I think it's unbelievably important.
Yeah, we actually have these team pillars that like our coach always like preaches to us. It's respect, pride, unity, multiple efforts, and bigger than basketball. And we actually had just like a classier meeting, me and like the other two sophomores on our team. And since we're gonna be like juniors next year, he's like, how do you guys need to like live by these pillars more? You guys need to like influence them more and like start using them, like implementing them in like our vocab a little more. Because now
Sure.
yeah, I mean like we like think about it like, on like the daily basis as like a reflection like, oh yeah, like I just did an interview, you know what I mean? That's multiple efforts towards my career, like something like that. But like now there's like freshmen coming in and they might think it's like, like kind of funny in a way, like not really think it's like as serious, but it yeah, that meeting just now kind of like put into perspective like, oh yeah, that's like pretty like standard for like a team success down the line, like how you want your season to go next year.
Yeah. He's asking you to lead.
Yeah.
He's asking you to lead and set the culture for those young guys. I think it makes a lot of sense. And um, that's you have a good culture if you can hand it down through multiple generations of players and continue to hold that level. So
So let's talk German national team. You coached the German national team from 2014 to 2017. How did this opportunity come about?
the opportunity came about. I was Team Germany had 5 coaches in 5 years, so they knew they needed to kind of change something. I was available at that time and had some meetings with the federation about doing it, and was maybe the biggest honor that I've had as a coach, and quite possibly the most fun that I've had in coaching because I think everybody's involved with it for the right reasons. There's not a whole lot of money involved. It's about you know your love for basketball and the guys that you basically grew up with, and obviously love for your country. So it was a phenomenal experience.
What was it like to coach Dirk?
Oh man, he was unbelievable. Dirk was he was 37 at the time, so he was nearing the end of his career. Um, we had part of Eurobasket in Germany, so he was going to play for one last summer. I think for years the Mavs games weren't broadcast in Germany just because the TV rights
Right.
uh, weren't available, and so a lot of people hadn't seen him play a whole lot, and he had this unbelievable career. And so he joined us. We had a lot of young guys. We were just it was basically a lot of young guys in Dirk. Dennis was 21, Tice was 20 or 21. He ended up being hurt that year. We had a bunch of those NBA guys who are in their primes right now were really young at that time. So, and then I think Dirk came in. I remember the first day he met us in Spain in training camp, and he made time for everybody. He challenged all those young guys. He'd take different ones to work out with them in the morning every day, get them up, and I think he was a resource for them. He led them by showing them the way, showing them how to be professional. And I don't know how much he benefited from me coaching him, but I got a ton out of being able to coach him. He was a phenomenal teammate and ultra competitive. And I don't know if people know how competitive he is, just because he's such a nice guy and a positive personality. He is an unbelievable competitor. It was great to have him around.
So how did that experience coaching the German national team and having Dirk there on that team influence your coaching philosophy at the end of the day?
Uh, I think it was evolving at the time. So I was going from I coached Eurobasket that summer and then went right to my first NBA job in Denver. And I think that whole process prepared me for coaching in the NBA quite a bit, because the national team stuff, the turnaround between games is really quick, right? You have less preparation time, less time with your team. You have to be really light on your feet and distill your message down to what's important. And I think that national team time really helped me do that and prepare me for what was coming, which was 82 game seasons.
So you mentioned your first role in the NBA was assistant role with the Denver Nuggets. What was it like transitioning from European basketball to now the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be honest, my head was spinning. It was so different, and I'd been a head coach for 16 years. I hadn't been an assistant yet. That was a big adjustment in itself. And then moving to the NBA, where the game's quite a bit different, and there's some things that you just have to get used to. Um, but Tim Conley had helped bring me over. Mike Malone was phenomenal in terms of being patient with me and explaining to me what how things worked, and hopefully I helped them a little bit in that year, and it was a really good experience for me. It was Nicola's first year; he was a rookie that year, and they were on their way to building something special.
How was that altitude? What was that like at first?
Yeah, it's real. It's real. I think of course, you notice it, and once you get there, you get used to it. I think when you go on the road for a little while and then you come back, you really notice it. And obviously, teams coming in feel that as well. So it's for sure an advantage.
Early on in Nikola Jokic's career, actually, Jamal Murray actually talked about on a podcast I forgot whose podcast it was, but I heard he said he missed like his first 16 shots of like his NBA career or something like that. And like he said his confidence was like wasn't dipping at all. Do you recall like anything like that? I forgot what podcast it was on.
I wasn't there. Jamal came the year after I
Oh,
was there. So, but it was Nicola's rookie year. Um, I just remember, everybody kind of, didn't really know what they were going to have with him. Was he going to be we didn't have a G League team at the time. They were kind of looking at some situations there where we were going to get this. And everybody knew he was talented, but not quite to the extent. And credit to him, he lost like 30, 35 pounds, something like that, going into training camp. And all of a sudden, every day you'd notice him more, notice, how special he was even more. And then, I think Mike did a good job of recognizing that in him early and promoting that. By the end of the season. He was he was our best player.
so you coached other than the Nuggets earlier on in your career, you coached with the Nets and the Bulls. How did each stop kind of challenge you and help you grow as a coach?
Yeah, so I took the job. I left the Nuggets to go to Brooklyn. Ken Atkinson and I were college teammates at Richmond.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's a challenge in itself, working for a friend, but then also, um, that organization had really at that point was pretty devoid of players and draft picks, and they had to build from nothing. And I thought, Kenny and Sean Marks had a pretty good, had a really good approach to everything we did. And I thought the culture that was built over those years allowed us in 3 years to finish sixth and be a playoff team pretty much from nothing and no draft picks. It was a really special thing to be a part of, and a special time because I think we were all nobodies at that time, trying to figure it out. And um, the culture was phenomenal. Like it did things the right way. Obviously, Kenny's player development background was maybe the biggest takeaway. He helped us turn players that weren't quite or barely NBA players, and really, he was able to show them the way to get better and to become really good and productive, NBA players, and help us win eventually. So, that was a really, really good experience. And then I went to Chicago in 2019 with Coach Boylan, and that situation was difficult. That the organization was, maybe in what we could call a transition phase. They had some really young pieces in a rebuild, but we're trying to then turn that into winning. Um, we probably had a we were probably a couple years away in that process, and I think maybe it got sped up a little too much. Um, and COVID hit. Um, Coach Donovan came in. Was fortunate enough to stay on staff with him. Obviously, he's a Hall of Fame coach who'd had a ton of success in college at Florida, and had done a fantastic job at OKC. And um, he was a very, very different coaching philosophy. It was great to learn from him, and he did a phenomenal job leading those, especially those veteran players, and keeping um, good relationships and building strong relationships with a very veteran team. I think which allowed us to have a lot of success early on. Unfortunately, that didn't hold, but we I think under his leadership did pretty well. They're really taken off early on in that stay.
So in 2021, you actually stepped in for as an interim head coach for the Chicago Bulls. and went 5-0 during while Billy Donovan was absent. So what was that experience like to be a head coach in the NBA, and how did it impact basically your confidence going forward?
Um, it was a crazy time. Guys it was COVID time, so the league was just coming back from that, and guys are coming in and out, and unfortunately, Billy got hit with it. Um, Look, it was phenomenal. The players were great during that time, and played for each other, and the rest of the staff. I think we all kind of came together and shared the responsibility of missing a head coach. And I think those situations are a little different, right? You're not being named head coach for the next you know you know years, and um, they're not trying you out because they fired a coach before you, right? So you're not. It's a different situation. It's like if your friend gets a shiny new sports car, and he flips you the keys, and you're excited about it, and you take it out, and you drive it quick off the line, and you take it around the curves, and you go really fast, but I think you're really, really happy when you put it back in the garage with no scratches. And so I think that was how we all felt at the end. And obviously DeMar hit two really big shots to win games in that stretch, and it was a good exercise for our staff. I think we all got closer together, and so um, confidence wise, I think those things are always good. A different a view from a different seat will always help you.
So I'm a big fan of Lonzo Ball. I had to ask you, what was it like to have Lonzo Ball around and like coach him up?
Zoe was phenomenal. When he came, uh, we were a half game out of first going into the All-Star break the year he was with us before the injury. Right. Actually, that's right after he got injured. Um, so I think I, I'm with you. I'm a Lonzo fan as well. I think he's a phenomenal human being, and there are very, very few people that could have withstood uh, the multiple surgeries, the not knowing what that situation was, to kind of taking a leap of faith with that last one, and still staying positive and still believing through the whole time. And I think I rooted for him before the injury, and it's tenfold now, and I think he's gonna keep getting better, and he's gonna keep surprising people. So I'm really happy for him. I felt so good when I saw him get back on the floor this year.
So let's talk joining the Portland Trailblazers staff. What basically drew you to join Chauncey Billups' coaching staff with the Trailblazers in 2024?
Well, I think two things really. Obviously, Chance has a really good reputation among people in this profession. I think everybody knows he's going to be a really good head coach. He already is, but he's going to keep growing. He'd only been doing it for a couple of years, and um, wonderful with his players. I think that was known to me, and that's definitely the truth. And then the second piece is that, like, their young pieces are good.
Yeah.
Like, looking at that roster, I was excited about the young guys we would have the opportunity to coach, and I'm really thankful that I got that opportunity, because these guys are they're good now, and they're going to keep getting better.
So talking about this season, what were some of your goals as a coach going into the season with the Blazers?
I think if you look at the West is a monster, right? Like, look at how um, the West shook out this year, right? The third, fourth, and fifth place team all had 50 wins. Um, I think sixth place had 49, and seventh and eighth both had 48, right, in play-in spots. 48 wins, and I've been in the East the last 8 years before this. 48 wins in the East has always meant fifth place or higher. There's never been a year where 48 wins got you anything lower than fifth place. In a lot of years, it was fourth, third place. In the West, it's where it is, and it's been like that for a couple of years. So I think with a young team going into that situation, it's hard to go in and think you're going to be in some sort of playoff situation and hang the bar up there on those young guys. We really leaned into, process-oriented goals of getting guys better every day, and I think that happened. Those guys bought in and they worked, and I think our approach was, okay, well, let's see what we have with this group, and let's see how much we can improve throughout the season. And at the end of the day, if we started that season on January 1st, we're a playoff team. Like those guys got better in the second half of the season. Obviously, Denny was phenomenal, but we built something that I think going forward could challenge for playoff spots.
So talking about that young core a little more, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, and Shaden Sharp, can you talk a little bit about their development as players?
Listen, all three are different players, and everybody kind of develops at their own rate. Like I think Scoot, if you look at Scoot, he's been this, almost celebrity since he was 16. He was so good, so young, and he carries that pressure with him, and he's done an unbelievable job. Just dealing with that tough rookie year, which was, it's normal for a 19-year-old point guard. These guys take some time, but his process has been phenomenal. His spirit's good every day. It's the same every day, and he brings it every day. So I think it was nice to really see him work. I think coming in, I knew Ant the best because he had been leading that team for a while, especially last year. Obviously, he's got an unbelievable offensive skill set, and we all look at him as this veteran player because all the rest of them are so young, but Ant's only 25 himself, so he's really. I thought he took a jump this year, and he's going to continue to get better. And I think Shea is the third one you asked about, and I think with him, just sky's the limit. He's missed a couple years of his development. Unfortunately, he didn't play in Kentucky. He had some injuries. He had all this stuff going on. So, it's hard as a young player. He doesn't turn 22 till the summertime, and man, he is really talented, and he's just figuring out the game, and he's a really smart kid, and he's going to be a really good player.
So I know we alluded to it a little earlier in our conversation, talking about like evolving strategies, especially like analytics in today's NBA. So how are you basically staying like current and up to date with the evolving strategies and analytics?
Basically, listening to what the network of people, the smart people that I've been fortunate enough to get to know over the last years. Just kind of listening to what they're saying, asking some questions about things that I think are pertinent to us. I think the Trailblazers have a pretty good analytics staff, and it's been good this year to learn from them. So it's something that interests me because I think it makes sense. The analytics piece makes sense, and it's a huge It's a huge developmental tool. It's a huge tool to guide your team. It doesn't tell you everything for sure, but you can get a lot of really good information to help your guys get better, and ultimately that's what we all want.
So I whenever like you know how like you get into like those lunch table or like barbershop arguments about which player is better than what player, or sometimes talking about like teams, and you look at the stats, and some guys would say like stats lie. I've said that before. So as a coach in the league, do you ever like think that stats or analytics like lie to some extent sometimes?
I don't think the stats themselves lie. I think we can use statistics to build some arguments uh, in a bunch of different directions if we don't use them the right way. I do think there's times where that happens, but I think the numbers are the numbers, and I think it's just on us to use them in a way that helps our guys develop and helps our guys understand what we're trying to do. Um, and I think sometimes we as coaches, we can do one of two things. We can use the stats to bend an argument that we want to have, or we can use stats as an absolute. And I think the answer is probably in between. You want to give guys the facts that help them understand where their strengths are, and help them understand where we want to get better. So I think if you use them in the right spirit, it's an absolute win for everybody.
So my last and final question that I always ask all my guests, like looking down the line in the future, what legacy do you hope to leave behind, both from your success in Europe coaching and now your ongoing work in the league now?
Uh, that I laugh when you send me that question because I hadn't thought a ton about it. I think your legacy is the people that the friendships you've generated over the years, and the unique people that you've got to know. And I hope at the end of the day that uh, players that I'd been able to coach or be in contact with would say, all right, he helped me, cared about me, and cared about me as a person, and helped me get better as a player.
Well, Coach Fleming, thank you so much for coming on the show today and giving me this opportunity. And I wish you the best of luck with the off season, sir.
I appreciate you, Ashton. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.